Hey guys, welcome back to Deadly Dad's Daddy Daycare. I am Mr.PvE. I'm going to be joined by ImKxyz and ImJKK from the KOZ clan, talking about PvP in the division. This is probably going to be the only video you're really going to see is this little intro, and then it's just going to be some music playing in the background, gameplay playing in the background, and then the audio of our conversation that we have, because it's not very entertaining when I'm asking them a question and then I'm just staring at the camera and you can't see either one of them and you just see me staring at the camera. So with that being said, welcome and let's get started. Hey everyone, this is Mr.PvE and this is the Daddy Daycare podcast. We are joined today by two guests who play a lot of PvP in the division, and we're going to get a little bit of an insight of what's going on. One of the main questions that I wanted to ask, because it's PvP, but from my understanding, it's not all the same. Is there a difference from conflict and dark zone PvP?
There is a massive difference.
The biggest difference is your build. Like, you don't really see people running around with anything less than 5 blues in DZ. And everyone's usually 5 to 6 blues in DZ. But that's what the meta is in there, because you have to worry about 8 other people shooting you on top of ads.
It's
So you
essentially
kind of need the armor.
like you have a lot more room to move around is the issue. In conflict, the maps and all the angles are it's a lot smaller than in the DZ. So if the all red like glass cannon people are nowhere near as successful in dark zone because there's way more avenues of approach. In conflict, we can cover all of the avenues of approach just because it's so small.
So if I was to try to run the same build, like the say I was running like a just a DPS build for the dark zone, if I was to try to run that into conflict, it just wouldn't work just because of the layout of the game itself, right? Like the difference.
Yeah, so it varies on players because I mean some people can make it work a lot, but it's nowhere near as successful. In Dark Zone, the tried and true method is having four people with that specific. There's a reason why the build is called a Dark Zone build, and like it's just the 1-8 catharsis. You know, it's 2 million now that we got expertise and whatnot,
Expertise,
but
yeah.
like it's people run that because there's a very first of all you have to worry about more players. Second of all, it allows you to move around because you have so much more room to work with on the dark zone. Because that's why in conflict, when people run that dark zone build, they usually don't do as well because it's very difficult for them to move around without somebody having an angle on them. And like division in general is just fucking positioning. 99% of that game is positioning. If you are in the right position, then you can kill somebody regardless of. And in the dark zone, since everybody's survivability is so damn high and everything, you don't have to worry about that nearly as much.
Yeah, and then again with that build, it's you have to like it, again, like JK's saying, it's a bigger area, so that build performs better because catharsis. The more you get shot, the more damage you did. So if you just have more things and people around you to shoot you in general, you're proccing that mask more and more. In conflict, you only have 4 people. Yeah, you can get hit with a stinger and the bleed will proc it, or a defender, not defender, an attack drone lands on you and it'll stack it. But a lot of players, especially the attack drone, very few people use it. The hive, yeah, people use it. 9 times out of 10, it's a skill build, so you don't want to get hit by that anyways. So it makes the build a lot harder to really perform better because the things that can be used to proc it are a lot harder.
And so like the main difference between Dark Zone and there's a few players that they always have that I guess rivalry type thing you could say that they always fight against, oh, which one's better, or which one's this, or which one's that, because it's two completely different games. I don't think you can put them even in the same category, because a Dark Zone player will say, hey, conflict players, come 1v1 me in the Dark Zone. And then that's their test of skill. That's how they gauge how good a player is. Conflict people are like, no, it's more than that. Like, because conflict, if you got 4 people, and it's like, no, you get your 4 people, we get our 4 people, let's go to the conflict and we'll fight against each other. Like, it's in a way more strategic in conflict, because you have to
There's an
worry about
honest
synergy.
objective in conflict. If
Yes,
you go
there's
to
an
skirmish,
objective.
the team has 20 lives. In DZ, you can get manhunted 1,000 times. There's no limit to that. So in
There's no
conflict,
limit.
you have skirmish, which is 20 lives. You have domination, which is only to 750. You have team elim, which is
And that's their
it's just search and
and that's
destroy without the
the
thing.
different for us being conflict players, it's all, we're obviously we lean towards the conflict, but um most Dark Zones players, like, their argument is that they don't like people holding corners and shit. So, like, you're 1-8 fucking DZ build, you're running down the road, you don't know where everyone's at, but a glass cannon guy can peek out of the corner and just one clip you, regardless of how good your strafe is. And that's what most DZ players are like, nah, I don't like doing that. They like to get shot at and actually having a chance to react and stuff like that. And hence why they run such high armor and stuff.
Because they're like,
Um,
oh, I'm getting beamed. Let me be able to turn around. But if you have someone who's all red glass, all red spotter, you eliminate that whole. Oh, I'm gonna be able to turn around on this guy. No,
and those
Bec-
things exist in Dark Zone as well. The reason why they are not as successful is because of the movement. Like, as an all red, when you shoot, they better die. Like, they need to die within the first half of your clip. If they don't die in the first half of your clip, then they have a chance to react. And they don't have that chance in conflict as much, because the angles are way more narrow. In the Dark Zone, if I'm getting shot from one direction, I have about 3 different areas I can roll or move to a spot where that person can no longer shoot me. And if they have to push me, then that puts them at a disadvantage, because I see where they're coming from already. Like, it's very, very reliant on the angles, and there's way more cover, there's way more different routes and shit that you can take in the Dark Zone. And that's why when you're running Dark Zone, you have a lot of people using the what are they called? Funnel points. They if they have to fight 8 players, they have to funnel them to specific areas on the map of the Dark Zone, where they can only get shot at from 2 spots, or they can only get pushed at 2 spots. And so that's the way that they like to play it. But, there's different levels to it, right? Like, even in conflict, people run solo queue all the damn time. So they're like, okay, I like playing running solo queue. You might get teammates that are not that great, but you know that might be how you like to play the game. In Dark Zone, there's like people that like to fight all 8 players, no matter what they use. Because if all the other 8 players are hitting you with mortars and they have glass cannon nemesis, and like that's a lot of stuff that the really high level Dark Zone players. Well, I like to say that there's different levels to it, because in the Dark Zone, there's those really good fucking players that are like fucking Blur and most of the FTO Zim guys. Those guys are gonna be upset if you hit them with like glass cannon or skill builds or whatever. But they're really good at 1v1s. Like 1v1s, mosh pit 4v4s in Dark Zone, they will fuck your shit up. But in there, it's a different type of thing when you're doing versus the server, and you have to be able to, all right, let me put on Cavalier because they're hitting with a mortar, or let me put on this or whatever because they're actually fighting against 4 people that are going to shoot them with whatever the hell they want. Which is the conflict side. Their argument is the whole, like, you should be able to run whatever the hell you want. regardless of what you like or dislike. Because even right now, the grenade glitch thing is going on is going running rampant in everywhere actually, not just conflict and DZ. Again, with conflict being a much tighter group, tighter, smaller area, it's a lot easier for the grenade to go crazy because you hit yourself with a grenade, everyone in 20 meters gets hit. And since the map's smaller, you get more people. Um, Even with that thing, which they said that they fixed, and a lot of people complain about it.
They did fix, and then when they went when they recalibrated the backpack so that people could start re-rolling it, they broke it again.
Yeah, they just reverted it back. Yeah, but even that something that is 100% broken. The devs said so, and they said they're going to fix it, and they tried to fix it. They fucked it up again. There is a ways around it, and that's just the conflict mindset. Is that since you're not in the dark zone, you can't talk shit to the people because that's how most of the things are. Oh, you. You're using this build or whatever. I don't like the fact that you're using this build. That's cheap. That's easy. That's cheesy or whatever the fuck. Like, you don't have that in conflict. But you can't talk to them. The only thing you can do is send them personal messages, and nobody gives a shit if you send them personal messages. So you can't really dictate what other people are running. Dark Zone, they can actually hear you. Doesn't mean they have to listen to you, but they can hear you.
I was gonna say, and even then, most of the time with this community, they just talk to talk. That's
Yeah, that's something I
it's
really wish I could fix about the Division 2, like PvP community in general. People, it's very it's very one-sided. Like, what is it? Closed mind. Everyone's closed-minded. So it's like, okay, um you beat me, you're cheating, and if I beat you, you're trash. That's like a very prominent way of thinking in this game. And I mean, I don't know the exact reason, but people, like, they start getting grudges, and they start disliking each other, like, over a video game. And I don't know the actual reason, but my best guess is that um, it's since you see the same people over and over and over again, since the PvP community is so small, you develop some type of relationship, whether it be resentment, whether it be, oh, I like this person, or whatever. In Call of Duty and like any game that has a wide player base, like a lot of players, you don't have that because you're never playing against the same people twice.
hmm
Okay, so now that you brought that up, the whole cheating thing, I did have a question for that, and it was, what are some of the things that you guys do that make people think you're cheating, and do you think that if people just understood the certain pieces and how to build, they would realize that none of the stuff they're accusing you of is actual cheating and more just you being more knowledgeable than they are, pretty much, because you understand the build mechanic of the game, and a lot of that has to do with when people call you cheating. Oh, you're doing this, you can't do this in the game, and then you guys have to be like, yes, we can. You need to do this and this.
You go first, Keys. I talk a lot.
the a lot of what makes people assume like cheaters this and cheaters that. One, it's a small community, so again, Jake, you run into the same people over and over and over, which is gonna happen regardless. But two, a lot of people don't play this game religiously. It's not like Call of Duty where people go in and they're trying to win tournaments and go pro or whatever. This game doesn't have that. So the people who do play this game are most of the time people who get off of work, people who don't put in a lot of time, people who literally only play it to have fun. So that's their mindset. Is to go have fun. So they try PvP, they do this, they do that. So but then you run across someone like me and Jay who have a lot more free time than most of these other people who learn the mechanics, who learn to build, who have 9 times out of 10 more gameplay hours than these people that accuses of cheating, and that's and instead of using like, well, he does have 2,000 more hours than I do. He does have, 13 more expertise than I do. They just assume
There's a bunch of little
cheating.
things. So like, for me, I mean I can speak a little bit on Keys, but I don't know as much of his cheating accusations. But Keys, he gets the you're on mouse and keyboard a lot. He gets that all the damn time.
Mhm.
And the reason why people say that about him is say, oh, you move too fast. Your strafe is too fast. You're zigzagging way too quick. And I didn't realize this about him until he told me about it. But his settings for
Yeah,
like
they're on the
sensitivity and
highest.
stuff are completely different than
Yep,
anybody else's. Yeah, he has the highest sensitivity, obviously.
the
That's like
highest on
that's the
everything.
basic thing. Like a lot of
And
people,
you
and it's really
and
funny because we can
you
tell
will be surprised how many people don't play with max
a
sensitivity.
lot of
And
people.
that's the first thing I always tell them. Like when I used to talk to people, because everyone was just accusing me, and then I got in the mindset of their mind's already made up. No matter what I tell them, I'm a cheater in their head. Whatever I say isn't gonna matter. So I would always ask them what their sensitivity is, and they'd be like, "Oh, I play at 10 and 5." I'm like, "You physically can't aim fast enough to even track me. Normally, I could walk sideways and you would be behind me. So imagine me sprinting with the Lady Death buff, which makes you 20% faster, and I always use the Lady Deaths.
That's another thing. The Lady Death buff. That so a lot of
It
people that oh
doesn't.
you're moving way too quick.
It
People forget
doesn't.
about that Lady
It.
Death buff. That Lady
It.
Death buff makes you move so fast.
And
But that goes back. That goes back to the thing I was saying that like, if people just took to the time to understand what pieces that you're wearing do, it would eliminate a lot of the accusations of people calling other people cheaters,
Yeah,
right?
there's a
Like,
few. There's a few of those things like that. That's one of them for Keys. Um, the whole bonk build thing is an entire thing that people don't really understand a whole lot either. They're like, oh my god, this dude's, two tapping me by meleeing me, and he takes a ton of damage to kill. Like he's got a claws out, he's got the Lady Death. If you read it on there, it increases melee damage, and then you use the firewall shield that increases all your outgoing damage per enemy that's inside of the cone. All that together makes you do a shit ton of damage whenever you melee somebody. And Keys, and for the higher level players that understand all of those things and still accuse Keys of cheating, his dead zones. Everybody uses so
Yeah, no one ever
the
believes me when I tell them my dead zones.
the the consensus for everybody in the PvP community is putting sensitivity at max and then putting your dead zones at 0 because it decreases how far you have to move your joystick to actually for the controller to actually like the game to register you moving it. Keys does
mhm.
not play at 0 dead zones.
Yeah, I play
Keys
at 10
plays with his
10,
dead
baby bird.
zones
10 10.
at fucking damn near max. So
Mhm.
like that's
And
completely different from how anybody else plays.
and the reason why, and I mean, it is gonna take getting used to, because it does decrease your reaction speed. It does.
Yeah, so
But
when
what
you
it
flick
doesn't
your stick,
decrease
your
is your
guy won't
strafing.
move unless you go all the way to the fucking way,
So
all
it
the way to
allow
the right or left.
what
You
it
have to be fully committed every
so
time.
what it
Yes.
allows me to do is that it allows me to literally break my sticks, and the game's gonna like, oh, he's trying to go hard right. Okay, let's just instantly do it. Let's just
So
bop,
yeah,
bop. So I'm fully committing to just strafing, and when I ADS, well, I'm 9 times out of 10 in front of you, so I don't really need to worry about
the
reaction
way
speed
that
if you're in my
I
face.
understand it is that because his dead zones are so high, when he flicks his shit left and right, it's so many inputs that the controller is literally inputting it as much as it like as quickly as it possibly can, because it's it hasn't even finished registering the one that he went to the right. So, but he's already on the left. So with the dead zone
It's trying
so
to catch
high,
up.
it's trying to catch up, and so it executes all of those immediately one after another. And there are people that are better at strafing than Keys that do other shit, but like that's just one of the very minute details that Keys does that makes his movement a lot different. And he keeps in mind that not to do the same movement twice. When he goes left right, he'll
So
go left right, right left, left left. Like
I'll,
he
I'll
makes
switch
sure
it up. I have
that he's unpredictable, makes it a lot easier, harder for people to track him.
So there is like a trick to it, because I know that when you play PvE and you do some of the raids and stuff, there is some people that when you're playing with them, they're like, oh, go to your settings, move this, move that. You want this setting here, you want this setting turned on. And it's all to give you an advantage over the mechanic of the game itself, to give you that higher success rate of a clear, because you move those settings. So in PvP, it's the same thing. That it's probably just different settings that you have to be messing with to kind of give you the
Yes,
better chances of winning the fight.
and they differ on each
between
person
people, because we used
because
to have someone
we yeah there was
who
a guy
would
that
play
we
with
played with that
low
played with low
sensitivity.
sensitivity. His I think his look sensitivity was high, but his aim sensitivity was low.
Yeah, he would play at
And the
maybe like
reason he would do
13
that,
aim, but or 13 camera, but then probably like what, like single digit aim, right? Because he wouldn't touch
no,
double digit aim.
I think it was 20. It might have been 20 and 15 or 15 and 10. It was one of the two. It
But it
was a
was.
difference of 5.
Hmm.
But the reason he did that was because of the way the aim assist works in Division. In Division, the way the aim assist works is, um, since your sensitivity is so high, you barely touch the stick, and it'll take you off of the aim assist. Because the way the aim assist works in Division 2 is you hold down the look the aim button, and it will automatically go to whoever the hell you're aiming at, and give or take some. It's not perfect every time, but the reason why he would run low sensitivity is because when he did get the aim assist to proc, it was a lot it was stickier.
It
It
will
sticks
lock
to
on.
Hmm.
yes, it locks on harder because when he moves it like to actually aim and moves his right stick, it doesn't break the aim assist as much because the sensitivity is so low.
You're so slow. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's how I play PvE. My aim sensitivity and my camera sensitivity are very low. I don't play with them high at all, because it allows you to lock onto an ad and just follow them across the screen.
Yes, and that's what E used to do when we played with him. With me specifically for like, and I will preach this to the heavens. This game for PvP, I mean, and even PvE, it's all about positioning. If you're in the right position, like if you're in a position where the fucking NPC can't even shoot you, like he won't even notice you're fucking there. There's you could do that. There's positioning that I can get to where I'm just waiting for a guy to come around the corner. The game is all about positioning, and for why people call me a cheater usually, well, no, there's a couple things. First thing that most people you call me a cheater is for the fucking pop shot. I'm not even gonna get into that yet. I'll do that afterwards. But there is a skill called the tactician drone. I think that's what it's called, or spotter drone, something one of the two.
It
And
pulses
that
everything.
drone will tell you where everybody's at,
Yep.
regardless if you have pulse resistance or not. There's a little line that goes from the drone to where the people are, and if you get really good at reading that drone, you can tell exactly where everybody's at. It's like having a UAV. So
Yep.
like me using that and shooting people as soon as they're hitting a corner because I know they're coming around. I can see the line. They're about to come around this corner, so I'm gonna just sit here wait. I'll even pre-fire sometimes because like that freaks people out because they're like, oh, like this guy always knows where I'm at. Like he's always sitting here waiting, ready for me, and that's one reason people think I'm cheating or whatever because I use
Because
that
you
drone.
understand the assignment more than they do.
And
Yeah.
not just that too. What a lot of people don't understand, and like, I mean, expertise is gonna get removed pretty soon, so it's okay if I say this. When you expertise that drone, it gives you more range. So,
Yes.
JK has that at like 15. So he has like a 75-meter radius, while other people only have like 50, 55. So he
So
can literally
I
see
put
you
that
from
in
an
the middle of the
additional,
yeah. If I
like,
put that thing in the middle of the map, I can almost see end to end of the entire like the width of the entire map. Only problem with that is if you put it in the middle, it's very easy for people to shoot out. But
In order to be a good player in PvP and in order to be successful in PvP, like, you can't just be a good player. You have to know the mechanics of the game. You have to know how to build in the game. Because if you don't understand how to build, doesn't matter how good you are, someone who has a better build than you is going to kill you. And
Yes.
if you're a really good builder and you go up against another person who's a really good player, it's more of a fair fight than it is an automatic loss for the other person. It's more of knowing what you're doing, knowing what the pieces that you're running do so that you use them to their full potential, more so than uh, you're just naturally good.
Yeah, you could be the best, point and shooter in the world and still lose to somebody else because they could have 24 expertise. That was a huge thing when the expertise came out. Was the Kingbreaker? Good God, that Kingbreaker hits so hard. Like an all red Kingbreaker only needs to hit about 5 bullets to kill you, and so that makes it so even if I hit 15 bullets, which is 10 more than they hit, I still die because they only need to hit me with 5. And that was a big issue. The whole builds thing, you can the way that the builds are now, there's like pretty much predetermined stuff that you can run. Like I'd say there's a solid 15 different builds that are like solid and you can see around almost everywhere you go. It's about 15 of them. And if someone gives you that build doesn't mean that you're going to do well on it. Cuz like glass cannon is my favorite example. You got a glass cannon person on your team, they're either gonna go 10-0 or 0-10. Like they, and it's all about positioning, all about knowing. All right, there's 3 people pushing me. I'm screwed. Let me get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
It's
and just because, again, and a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people use YouTube way too much when it comes to PvP. The amount of builds that I've seen people make and be like, that's another thing why we get called cheaters a lot, is because they use YouTube builds and they come in here thinking it's gonna work, and it's like, well, the person you saw it from is that person's build. You didn't make that. Two, a lot
Yep.
of these YouTubers are also
not
usually
that good
24.
at.
Well,
Well,
they're
they're
not
also not
good,
that good at
but they're
PvP to begin with.
so it comes down to just a lot of different aspects. So settings is one of your biggest things. Never use someone else's settings. Like a lot of like people have asked me, and and even the clanmates have asked me like, "What are your settings?" I tell them, and they're like,
You have to
"How?"
tweak settings is the issue. So like this dude Keys, bro, I'll be playing games with him, not even just Division, and like he'll spend 15 minutes just messing with his settings.
Oh, I know.
I'll mess with my
I
settings
know.
before I even play the game. And he's like, "Why?" I'm like, "So that more, because once you figure out your settings for one game, it's most likely the same for all the other games."
Yeah, slight variations, but for the most part, it's the same thing.
Yeah, you
Um,
have your favorites.
so here's a question then. And this is and I talked a little about this on the other one also, but all PVE perspective, and it was the same thing. It was like if you go to YouTube and you watch someone's build, and then you come out and you think, well, I'm gonna run it and I'm gonna be as successful running this build as he was, and it's like, no, you're not. You're not that person. You unless your playstyle is identical to theirs, you're never gonna successfully run whatever build you copied. Right? You always gotta make the build that they give you and then tweak it for you. Right? So I'm
Hmm.
assuming that's like kind of the same thing with settings and everything. Like, yeah, you could borrow some of the settings and get a better understanding of what everything does, but don't run what other people run. Run what makes you improve, because not everybody's the same. So I totally get that when you guys were saying that.
That
But
happens a
I
lot.
also I brought this up and I wanted to see how true it is by asking you guys. Um, I said that PvP in the division is not balanced. It'll never cater to new players. Do you guys agree with that or not?
It's not going to. There's
It
no way that you can. So, you give your opinion first. I'll give my opinion afterwards. 'Cause it sounds like
so
you're
okay. All right.
disagreeing.
All right. Look, no, I'm not saying it caters towards newer players, as in they're gonna. Now it is. because of the way
No,
they're
it's
good.
gonna help them, but it's
It's
never.
not.
I'll
Well,
go ahead, go ahead. I'm just gonna. I'm
I
about
mean
to.
it in the aspect of like it's gonna be more fair and balanced.
Yes, I
The way
understand
it's
that.
the reason that still would never be completely fair is because you're new. 100 hours, 200 hours. JK's touching almost six. I almost have five. Like, even though yes, same gun, same this, you have a skill to worry about. Is it gonna make it more competitive? Is it gonna make it a little bit easier for them to, you know, compete? Yeah, but they're not gonna be, fully, like, what's the word? Like 100% on an even playing field.
Well, what percentage would you say it is then?
I will say instead of dying 100% of the time, you at least have like a 20% chance to kill us now.
So there's an 80%. So it's
So
80%
it's
in
not
favor
balanced.
of
That
of
means
the.
it's not balanced. So
It,
that was my point, right? It's not balanced for new players. Like if you think you're going to come in as a new player and compete with people who have been playing this game for a long time, expertise, no expertise, shade watch, no shade watch, doesn't matter.
So
It's not ever going to be fair.
this
It's
is
never going to be in your favor.
this is what I'm gonna say about that. No, there is no way in hell you're gonna start a game and somehow compete with the people that have been playing it for a while. It's with anything. If I show up to a basketball court and try to play against an NBA team, I'm gonna get my ass handed to me because they're just built different. They play the fucking games. It's like that's just how it is. However, with the expertise changing, it is going to become slightly easier. Now, it all depends on the player because there's no way in hell you're gonna just join a game and just instantly become very super successful, be great because you have to learn. Same way I did, same way Keys did, same like Dylan is a great example because Dylan has the least amount of hours and he came in relatively new and he's gotten to the same level as both me and Keys are at.
But with your guys' guidance, it's a
Well, no,
difference
he played
when
against
you
us
come in
though.
by
he
yourself
played.
and when you come.
So
He
when he
played
played when he
against us
played when he the when he
90%
first
of the time.
in the first his first like 1,500 hours was all against us, all of it, and that's the difference between, in my opinion, of a really good player and a great player because when you play against us and you can learn from us, that's when you become a really good player. Because Dylan can now do, you know, Keys' job just as good as he can, and he can do my job just as good as I can.
I don't know, man. It's
Uh,
baby Dylan. It's baby Dylan.
Okay, with that being said, with the way you're saying that someone can come in and learn from you, like what you're doing and stuff like that. Here's something, and I notice this when I go watch your guys' streams. When people are beating you guys, when you are beating people and they're accusing you of cheating for any particular reason, you guys literally start telling people what builds would fucking counter what you're currently running. Why? Why would you tell people how to fucking beat
to be
you?
honest with you,
Because we know it's not gonna matter. Because even when we
we're
do that,
bored.
we make the game a little bit easier, right? Because on them, because they're like, oh, we know what to use, we know. But it's like, okay, like one of JK's builds was like, oh, there's no way to counter it. You can't have enough armor. So
So
JK made a
yeah,
build to give him
we
enough
were
armor.
okay. So let me give you the quick rundown. This is the pop shot thing I was bringing up earlier. Pop shot is a glass cannon. You sacrifice every little bit of survivability you possibly can. You have zero survivability. If you get looked at, you fucking die. However, if I have a sniper rifle, the sheer amount of damage that I have, I can one tap people. And it's a sniper rifle, really. So you have a scope. Usually, I decided to take the scope off of the sniper rifle, and so now I'm essentially quick scoping people. Reason people don't like this is because I only get out of cover for a split second to shoot, and then I get back in cover. It uses aim assist. With aim assist, I don't even need to fucking. I mean, I've gotten pretty good at the point where I can miss and then like realign it to hits them in the head, but like that's a big issue that people had, and tons of people were like, "Nah, we can't play against that. It's broken. There's no build that you can wear that will be able to counter it." And so Keys came up with the idea of, well, what if you just he asked me, he said, Jay, how much damage do you do with your White Death, the sniper rifle? And I told him it was just about 2.3 mil, and he was like, okay, let me see if it's physically possible to get more than 2.3 million armor. And with the introduction of expertise, you could.
You could. You get 2-4.
So you can actually get 2.5, but that's with 24 everything.
Oh,
But
yeah.
if you use that build, you can tank one. You can get hit. You can get hit by the all red glass cannon sniper rifle one time, and it won't kill you. So
But you're sacrificing everything for that.
yeah, you're going everything the opposite way. You're going from all your the glass cannon guy is I'm going all into damage, no survivability. But if you go in the opposite way, all survivability, you can kind of counter it, and it comes down to being able to play it really well, because you might not die in one shot, but you die in two. So you need to be very careful of how you approach the situation. And that's what people didn't understand, because they try to use it against us. Like we gave them, they say, hey, look, here's a 2.4 build, you could use it. And when they try to use it against us, they didn't understand the way that they needed to push. Because if I'm sitting in cover with the all red glass cannon, I'm just waiting for something to come into my view so I can shoot it. And so what you should do as that 2-4 is run out into my line of sight. You get hit once. Now you can pop a kit, pop your defender drone, and then you can push me pretty much. Like you, because your armor is gonna keep coming back, and then you just gotta use that one free shot that you can take to close the distance to get to me in order. Because once you get to me, it's over. Like it doesn't matter if you're 2.4 million armor or not. I would die quick, and people were having a hard time doing that because they were still running around 2-4 thinking, oh, this is the counter, I'm invincible. Like it's not the same as explosive resistance with a mortar. Like if I run into a mortar and I have 90 explosive resistance, that mortar will literally do nothing to me. With the pop shot, it doesn't work that way. You still have to have some semblance of skill in order to counter the
To
build
push.
that it's
Yeah.
made for. And that was the reason why we started doing that. Well, Keys actually brought it up. People started using the pop shot against us too. So, I mean, I just started using the 2.4 million armor build the way that it was meant to be used, and it performed well. Like I would end up stopping people that were doing the all red glass cannon pop shot thing to us, and so like
Yeah, because I noticed like going into the streams, like I'll go in and I'll just lurk and be watching stuff and try to understand that aspect of the game better, right? Like the PvP aspect of the game better. And I would see you guys, and people would be complaining, and you're like, "Oh my god, just put this on, put this, do this, do this." I have 100% resistance to this, but if you just use this, this will freaking kill me. Like fuck, like just do this. Like you guys would get annoyed because they'll be complaining so much about something that you're doing, and them not ever be able to beat you, that you guys would literally tell them, do this, this, and this, and you could fucking beat this build. Like, I was just thrown off by it. I was like, why would you tell people how to freaking beat you? It made no sense to me, but they still couldn't do it because when I would keep watching the stream, like, it was the same result at the end of the day. So
the way that the game works is that everything has a downside. So you run that 2.4 million armor build, yeah, you can. It's pretty easy to push a glass cannon pop shot, right? Not easy, but it makes it easier. But if somebody were run, I don't know, like a all red unbreakable build or something, or a spotter with a Kingbreakers mess that thing up because there's no pulse resistance on it. Like it's a chess game. Because if there's anybody with a Kingbreaker, that the 2.4 million armor build's probably gonna get shredded pretty quick. And so and they have to put themselves out there to push the pop shot. So there's a lot to it, and what makes us so good is our synergy. Because I'm chilling in the back with all reds or whatever, and they make it pretty easy on me because they don't let anybody get to me. Because if I'm shooting a guy and he's pushing me, But the entire three other players of my team immediately stop what they're doing to turn and help me focus that guy to make sure that I stay alive. Then that's just, it makes me live longer. It makes me able to help them out more because I'm all reds and I can keep people off their back. Like it's all about synergy and positioning. Like, and that's what makes them not as successful whenever they play against us.
Yeah, I notice a big part of it too is if anybody that's playing, it goes kind of both ways. If you start to get in your fields, like you get your little like you start getting the feel for anything and emotional, like you start to lose fights pretty fucking frequent.
Yes, that is.
You let your emotions get the better of you, and I've seen like people start running out into the open and dying when they weren't doing that. They were staying in cover and surviving longer, and they weren't getting the result they wanted, but at least they were surviving longer. And then they get in their fields, and then next thing you know, they're like getting tapped left and right. They get super pissed, and eventually they end up quitting and leaving or talking shit right before they exit the game or whatever. So it's one of those things that's like, as long as you're having a good time and you're vibing, you typically will be a lot better than someone who's starting to get annoyed or frustrated with something because you will start making more mistakes.
Mm-hmm. That's how it works with everything. If I'm
Yeah.
pitching in baseball and I get in my own head, I'm gonna start walking people. Like it's Keys does it, I do it. We just get upset. We're playing in a game, we die in a way, or something happens. We get upset and we start doing shit that is stupid that we wouldn't usually do. Like Keys loves to run into four people
No, I don't.
and
What are you
get
talking about?
fucking shredded.
No, I don't. All right, I just respawn back at our spawn. I just like the
He's fast traveling.
Yeah, I just fast travel back
He's
to our
fast
spawn.
traveling. All right. So really quick questions and like just simple answers. Well, I feel like they might be simple. I'm not a PvP player, so that might not be as easy. But what do you think is more important? Or what is more important? To have a good build or to be a good player?
Good build.
I
So a
mean,
good build.
yeah, in division terms, your build kind of matters because, again, you can be like, if you're not a good player, your build makes up for it. Because again, this game, it like JK says, it's a mainly angles. That's why we're so good, is because we make sure we don't overextend ourselves and put ourselves in positions where it's not good for you or the team.
You're
So
not
if you have
putting
a good
yourself in a position that's easy for you to die.
yeah, so if you have a good build, on top of just, again, don't push four people, you'll be fine. Because your build
I
will most
say
likely
that the
do.
build is more important because you can put a good player on a shitty build and it's possible for them to beat a bad player on a good build. But I feel like most of the times, if you have a good build, like the Kingbreaker, if somebody's running a Kingbreaker against you and you have a shitty build, you're probably gonna lose just because they don't need to be good. They don't need to hit a whole lot of shots. They
Mhm.
can they that thing hits freaking hard, and you can run armor with it and still hit pretty damn hard. So like with the way that the builds are made now, it is a lot easier to be a bad like let's say if you're a decent player and you have a good build, that makes you a good player. Or if you're a bad player and have a good build, makes you a decent player. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, because a lot of this has to. This game is more about your like stats. It really. It's not like Call of Duty where it's like I'm gonna be using the meta gun and be good, because Call of Duty requires more skill than it is a gun. This one, like JK said, if you're using a Kingbreaker, yeah, you might not be the most accurate people. Out of the 50 rounds, you might hit 10, but because the Kingbreaker hits so hard, you only
10
need
is all you
10.
need.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 is all you need.
In Call of Duty, you might be like, oh, well, this gun hits the hardest, but if you can't control the recoil, you can't do this, you can't.
In Call of
It,
Duty, it's a lot. So in Call of Duty, it's fucking reaction time. Like if I react faster than you and hit more shots, and it's more based off of skill.
hmm.
In Division, you have a chance to react, and that's what made the pop shot so hated. Is that you wouldn't have a chance to react. You
You
just
would
get
take that away from them. Yeah.
you get popped
All
and you're
right.
dead.
So, in your opinion, in your guys' opinion, what is the easiest way to lose a fight?
The easiest way, it is a number of factors, but I feel like the easiest way is if just no one's communicating. If you're just arguing with each other and not really paying attention, or you're just not listening, like you're never gonna win a fight like that. You only have 4 players. So if one person in the group isn't listening, you're down to 3 in a 4 player mode, or someone's hyperextending, or
Jesus
it
freakers.
it's just I think that's the easiest way. If you're just not listening or you're not playing as a team.
So there's like you said, there's a ton of different factors that will contribute to a win or a loss. Easiest way to lose a fight is it's a synergy thing. If everybody's off doing their own things, then it's very difficult for you to succeed as a team. Like I could get 15 kills doing my own thing, but still lose a fight because I'm doing my own thing and then the team's not on the same page. So it's about communication. It's about movement positioning. So like if we're moving together as a team, depending like regardless, even if it's domination or skirmish. In skirmish, if you have 4 people running as a team and we run into one person, we're gonna most likely kill that one person. So now we're up. Now we can 4v3 the next people. It's even in domination, most people run in twos. If we're 2 people and they run into one person, like it's very dependent on your team being in sync.
Yeah, if you're a new player and you're trying to go into conflict, to be competitive, what is something that they should try to work on above all else? Like, let's say you're a player, you're not even in a group, it's just you. Something that will work whether you're by yourself or with a group or whatever.
Yeah,
W-
there's 2 different things that I'd like to um there you have your intangibles and you have your tangibles as a player. This is how I gauge and evaluate how good a player is. You can have good aim, good movement. Those are your tangibles. That's your actual physical things that you can work on and get good at. Things like game sense and awareness are the other things that for me are way more important. If I'm playing with somebody and they have really good game sense but they have shitty aim, I'd rather that than having somebody that's got really good aim but has shitty awareness. Because I can teach you, well not really teach you, but like you can practice that. You can practice getting good at aiming, you can practice getting, good at movement. We can mess with your settings, help you out with all of those things. But it is very, very difficult for somebody to teach somebody or for somebody to learn the game sense and understanding awareness and like I just had this conversation with Death Arts. Keeping track of how many people are alive at one time in conflict is goes to your awareness. If I know that I killed 2 people and then I watched on the kill feed
Kill
that
feed.
keys killed 2 people, then I know that they're all dead and we can make a push. We can move somewhere or like it's and then if I look at the top and there's X's, that means that person's dead. If I see that the X just turned to a specialization symbol, that means okay, I know that person just respawned. Or I'm shooting a guy and then I notice that I'm getting shot in the back from from the side, from that direction. So I maneuver myself into a position where that person shooting me in the side can no longer shoot me in the side so I can focus on the first person that I was originally shooting. It's little awareness and game sense shit like that that is the most important thing in games in general. So, but the thing is, I have no idea how one would work on those things. Like,
I think
it,
if you're truly a new player, you need to just learn the game from PvE. Learn what guns you like. Learn how to build. Learn your settings all in there because most of that does transfer over, you know, because it's you're going, but the difference is you are going against other people, but it those settings and stuff like that does transfer over
Yeah,
to a
if you have
sense.
good aim against NPCs, it's not like you're gonna have shitty aim against players. The problem is that you're not just not used to, hitting something that's zigzagging. NPCs don't zigzag.
Yeah, it's just that human factor.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
the
it's
human factors.
you need to learn your settings, and then first things you should always, now with expertise and everything getting moved from conflict and dark zone, I would typically say make sure you're at least 1,000 shade. That way you don't go in there with already a disadvantage as it is now. Because you're gonna, if you're a new player and you're like, oh, I'm shade 2, let me see PvP, you're not gonna know what build you're using. You're not gonna have the guns. Your watch is gonna be super, super underpowered. On top of that, you have expertise. There was so many things working against you. On top of you just being new to the game, you don't know what works. You don't know. You probably don't have all the skills. You probably don't have mods. You probably don't have gear. So focus on getting your build, understanding the build, learning how builds work before you take them to PvP. Because in PvE, you can use literally anything. Literally, my
Yeah,
dad has used
and
a
I've proven
system
that many times
corruption
over.
build in PvE to do legendary missions. You could, and system corruption's a PvP set.
Yep.
That's how easy PvE could be, but it is a good
When
fundamental
once you understand the game,
the game. Yes.
once you understand the game, yes, it is super easy to do stuff like that. Until you understand the game, you shouldn't really be trying to do stuff like that because you will get killed and you're gonna hurt the people you're playing with.
And it's the same way with PvP. Once you learn PvP, you could be like, okay, well, I like pushing, so maybe all res isn't for me. Maybe let me chunk a blue or two on there. You make a build. Sometimes I make builds just to see relatively the damage, the numbers, the armor. Sometimes you play, you're like, oh, I can survive pretty well on 1-3. Oh, wow, from the way I like to play, I need at least, 1-5, 1-7. So you tweak your builds that way. Once you learn the basis of it, what you should use, what you shouldn't use, and 9 times 10, if you're a new player, we've been playing this game for a while, you're going to see people use defender drones. You're going to see people use hives or sticky bombs, or you're gonna see a lot of these things. You're gonna be like, huh, well, if that person's using it and I've been playing for 3 hours now and almost everyone that I've gone against has used it, why is everyone using it? Let me start using it. You're gonna see what's being used the most, and from there you just pick and choose what you want. Right off the bat, you're gonna see literally almost everyone use a FAMAS or Elmo. Elmo's not that hard to get, FAMAS isn't that hard to get.
Yeah,
From time to time, you'll see people use a different gun, but 9 times out of 10, it's just a FAMAS and an Elmo. Not gonna take you that long to realize that. As soon as you get hit, and again, with how Division 2 is, you could now, when you die, you could just inspect someone's build. So if you really need a build, you could just be like, oh, I died to that. Inspect, screenshot, how did this kill me? You can either copy it, or you could be like, how do you get that gun? How do you get this? Oh, this is how he's doing damage. He's using this on his backpack.
but that doesn't necessarily always work because the real good players, the people who are good at playing PvP stuff in general, not just necessarily conflict, not just necessarily dark zone. I feel like the really good players, every time they make a build, you guys also make a counter for that build you just made. Right? Because
Yeah.
if you're playing with someone and they're like, oh, they're running that, I'm just gonna put that on because I happen to have them with me. You guys are just like, okay, cool. I'll put this on the counter to that. Right.
Yeah, so a
So
lot of the builds work that way, and it everything doesn't work for everyone. Like for that's definitely an aspect. Like for the pop shot, I could run pop shot. Somebody starts running the 2-4, then I can run like a 1-4 unbreakable vigilance. Now that's just it's a chess game that way. I can play a king breaker, and then they start playing pulse resistance, and Now that they're pulse resistance, I switch to something else. And now that I know that they're pulse resistance, yeah, now that they know I switched off of it, then they switch to something else. Like it's a very much a chess game.
And how much do you think that's going to change with the new update? Because with the new update, aren't they're locking down whatever you go in to conflict with, you're not able to switch out of that anymore, right? Like that's what they're saying. You're going to be
Yeah,
locked on
you
to
have
what you're wearing.
one switch. You can switch your build once per life, I think is the way it works.
So it's
So
not really going to change much because usually you don't change more than once anyways.
yeah, it depends on the player because there's
The
some players
player.
out there that will change like 8 times. Like so, and a lot of the Asian players do that. So there was a player that was number one actually on the leaderboards for a while, and he would switch to a hardwire pulse at the very beginning of the match, pulse everybody out. Then he would switch to a shotgun, and he would switch things. He would switch a ton. Any build that you could think of that would help you before the fight starts, he would switch to it, use whatever it has, and then switch to another build that would go for, to actually fight. That is not going to be the case anymore. That adds another strategy element to it. If somebody switched to a very tanky build to get out of the spawn, then us as the opposing team can say, all right, let's not kill that person so that we know that they're stuck on that tanky build. There's a bunch of
So it's
thoughts like
just
that.
you just have to add more strategy to what you're doing currently.
Yes.
Yes,
And
because
it's
you
and
only
it's
get one. You only get
yeah.
one. So you gotta be ready for when you need to switch and you can't.
And not just that too, but since expertise is getting removed and the watch is being more balanced, like a lot of builds aren't really gonna work anymore. Like there's the 2-4 build, a lot of people use it with
Ouroboros.
the Ouroboros, because even with 2.4 million, that gun shoots really fast. You get it to 24. Even with 2.4 million armor, you're still touching like I think 70, 80k per shot on that gun, which I still understand how, but it makes it very usable. But when expertise gets removed and the watch gets removed, well, now you're not going to be at 2.4. You're probably going to be like 2 million, maybe. And that vector is going to go from 80k back down to like it's 60k. So you're going to lose a lot of damage. It's going to make that build really not usable anymore. So a lot people might not even switch to it. People might just switch to this. So it might remove switching in general. Because when, like JK said, you put the 2.4 on, he's not going to use pop. But if you don't ever put it on in the first place, you're not really using that
So
switch.
would you say that if you're a player who is relying a lot on expertise and the watch to win your fights, you're pretty much going to be screwed when the new update comes out?
That's what Keys wants to say, because Keys gets upset whenever he fights those guys that have 2 million armor with like a King Breaker and does damage to him. Like, I don't think it's gonna make it completely useless, but it's not gonna be nearly as good as it was before. I think the all reds are gonna be way more frequent, and because before, or as it is right now, you can run expertise, you can run a lot of armor, and still be able to do a lot of damage. Getting rid of expertise, getting rid of the watch is going to mess that all up. So, and obviously you're going to lose some things as an all red, but you are still going to, in my opinion, all reds are going to be the most frequent and best build, or I say best, but that's just my opinion, but that's what most people are going to be using as an all red build or the regen thing now that that's a thing, but I don't know how the regen's going to work.
I think it's going to be more different than what you guys might be expecting too, just because a lot of the brand sets and shit like that are going to be that second attribute or talent is going to be getting changed on all those. They're adding so much more to them. So when you were normally to get the same amount of, let's say, like regeneration or skill haste or any stuff like that, that normally you would only get 20. I believe all the 20s are being changed to 40s. So it
Yeah,
takes less pieces to get to the same number that you're currently on now, which means you're going to be able to add, like, if it took you, 3 pieces to get 40% of this particular thing, if it only takes you 2 now, you have, you know, 4 more slots that you could do something else to get another, to double that number, or potentially do healing and duration for like a medic build, or, status effect and regen for another build or whatever. It's going to be a lot easier to get to those higher numbers.
yeah. I don't know which one specifically it's gonna be, because if they're giving us 40%, like, let's say weapon handling or whatever, that's not as important, right? As if we were getting like 40% crit damage or crit chance or whatever those things are. So, I mean, it's all gonna depend on that.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say if you rely on expertise you're gonna struggle. I will say some people will, because mainly just because of that Kingbreaker. That's I just hate that gun. I really do. So like if you're using a build that's like really tanky and you're like, oh, I'm super tanky and I got damage, but your sole purpose is based off of that Kingbreaker, then you probably will struggle because you went with the mindset of basing it around that gun. And like to put into perspective how stupid that gun is, it shoots faster than an AK and does more damage than an AK. And Division has been very good with slower RPMs, more damage. And when the Kingbreaker first came out, it was like that. It was 500 RPMs and it did more. And everyone complained in the PTS saying, "We love the damage, just wish it was faster, wish it was faster." So they did that. They kept the damage, made it shoot faster, and now it made 2 guns completely useless. It made all the FALs useless because it shoots the same speed, so but it hits harder. So why am I going to use a gun that shoots the same but hits harder? So I'm not going to use the FAL. And it eliminated all of the AKs. It's like, why am I going to use a gun that hits weaker and shoots slower? So it eliminated 2 guns that you should never be using anymore. And that's not including the fact that that's just the Kingbreaker. You could still get the non-name version, which is the TBK, which has the exact same stats, but you could just put whatever talent you want on it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you build around that gun solely because you're with the expertise, you're like, oh, cool, like my gun, won 7 million. I'm still doing like 110k per shot, PvP number wise. Yeah,
But
you shouldn't be doing that much damage.
I think a lot of the guns are going to change too, though. So what is now meta right now is probably not going to stay meta when the new stuff comes out, because like the F2000, that one's getting a reworked. I believe the RPM is going to go up higher and a touch on the damage. The invisible hand, they're going to make the Allegro from 12 to 15 or some shit like that. So that gun is going to shoot faster, and that gun already has really good damage output on that gun. So once they up the RPM on that gun might be a competitor for one of the better guns in the game. Because I don't know if you guys ever gone and actually looked at an invisible hand. The damage on those guns is really good. They're really easy to control and keep on target, and it's not a super slow fire rate of fire gun. But now that they're gonna increase the perfect Allegro on it, like it really is gonna be up there with some of the better guns now.
Well, see, like that sounds good, right? In your bit, but for PvP, people are probably still not going to use it. The F2000, yes, it might get better and people might use it, but you have to look at it this way: you're also going to be losing 10 crit chance because of the watch, right? The F2000 doesn't allow you to put an attachment on it, so those people are losing 15 crit chance.
Yeah, because I know that gun, I believe, is gonna get a bigger mag, more RPM, and then a touch that we're gonna rework the damage a little bit on it. On the 19th, I should be able to go in there and look around and see what what and all gets actually moved.
Yeah, some of the damages are gonna be increased, and so that's definitely gonna be good. I like that. I like the rebalancing of the weapons because
Like it is going to change a little bit because again, guns. Who knows? The F2 doesn't even though you lose, that 15 crit chance, the damage you do is so much that you're like, you know what? I'm okay with having little crit damage because the gun just hits so hard to begin with. So it could change it. It could make it a lot different, but most PvPers they don't really change from too much. Like if you're not using a FAMAS, you're probably gonna lose every fight you go into. If you're not using a specific gun, specific this, and especially with like in general PvP players, it's like if you're not using like the usual, you're like you're not considered like uh what's it called? Like you're not considered like a good player because it's like, oh, you're using the Kingbreaker, that's bad, or oh, you're using the Almo, like why? Like you could kill them with a gun that's not a FAMAS, right? You say you just kill them with the M4. They'll get mad at you, or they say that it's like, oh, why are you using an M4? Why? They'll just complain about it because it's just that's just
Well, I feel
how it
like
is.
any game that has PvP is gonna be like that because it's like people you go to this game to play this game. It has all these guns in it. You happen to fall in love with one specific gun, and everybody else who gets killed by it is like, that gun is cheesy. That gun is easy to get kills with. That gun is okay. So then use it. Shut the fuck up. If it's so easy to get kills with it, if it's such a cheesy gun and everybody fucking that uses it can get kills with it, then fucking use it. Use it and show me that you can do it too. Or shut the fuck up. And that's how it is for every single game in no matter what game it is. That's how it is with PvP. People are going to see one gun that they feel super easy to get kills with, and they're going to complain. Or they're going to want it to get nerfed or whatever. And then once they do that, they move on to the next thing.
The next thing, yeah.
Okay, now it's this gun. Okay, now I don't like that gun. Okay, now it's this rifle. I don't like that rifle. Let's change that. Oh, look at this shotgun over here now is bothering me. Let's change that one. It's a never-ending story, and anything that has to do with PvP in any game, it's just something that's gonna happen. Someone's always gonna bitch about something. Someone's always gonna complain. No one's ever freaking happy. There's always something to complain about, and it's just the nature of PvP. So I don't take any of that shit serious. If people go, don't use this gun because this gun's too easy, I'll fucking use that shit on purpose. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there's a lot of people who tell us don't use this, don't use that, and we purposely don't use it.
They won't fight us.
And then we play by their rules, and then we still win, and then they just find more and more excuses. So then it's
Yeah, that's why I don't listen to what anybody says, and I would advise that everybody who plays PvP in any kind of format, don't ever listen to what someone else plays. For one, they didn't buy the fucking game you're playing, so they shouldn't tell you how to enjoy it. And two, even if you do what they're telling you to do, they're just gonna find another reason to fucking get mad at you or tell you something else. Like it never fucking works out to listen to what people tell you. Just doesn't. But in the whole PvP aspect of the Division, the one thing that I like about this game more than any other game is once you learn how to build in this game, you can compete in just about any mode you play.
oh yeah.
Once you learn how to build. But until you learn how to build, like I just personally feel that this game is not balanced for new players because you don't have the experience of someone who's been building and making builds for fucking 1,000 hours, and you're coming here with your 100 hours and don't even know what majority of the pieces do.
See,
You just struggle.
that's not that big of an issue, like as big of an issue as it could be, because of the way the PvP works out, where you can just inspect. If a dude kills me, I can inspect him and be like, all right, cool, mine now. That's how that's how Dylan got so good at the game. Dylan was
I see build, I take build.
that's
Dylan's motto.
that's what he says. He says
I
that shit
see
all the
build,
time.
I
He says,
take
I
build.
see build, I take build.
That's
So
See,
anything
but you're at a
he's-
disadvantage. You're at a disadvantage there, though, right? Because if you don't make the build, you don't fully understand why the build is good. So then if you try to make another build to compete against that build or to nerf that build because you don't fully understand it, your whatever you make is not going to be as good. Right? Like I've always felt that in the division, like the biggest thing you could do to help yourself in any aspect of that game is learn the pieces. Read what they say, use them so you see exactly how it is they work, and then go from there as far as making your build.
That's what you mean
Because
by
when you
learning how to build. Okay, yeah, I would. For some reason, I thought in my head, I was just thinking, I thought like, okay, you know, learn how to put things together, and it's not about learning how to put things together. It's just learning more about the game, just becoming more knowledgeable about what the talents do, about what each
yes,
stat does, rather than
and I feel like when I'm in your guys' streams and stuff like that, and I hear people saying, "Oh, you're a cheater, you can't do this and this and that." In my head, I'm all like, "Yeah, you can. You just need to run this chess and fucking this skill, and you can do it." Like it's not hard to figure out if you know the game and you understand the pieces that are in the game and how they can synchronize with different things that you're running. But I feel when people complain about certain things in PvP, a lot of the times it's just a miscommunication or a misunderstanding of what the player you're accusing is doing.
that's
So
definitely
that
a big thing about just misunderstanding what people are doing. Because with the pop shot, I go out in and out of cover. Like my ADS is so fast that people feel like I'm shooting them through walls and shit, just because they don't know where they're getting shot from. So people not understanding that, like it's the same way. It's the same thing. It's the same thing you were saying.
yeah. All right. So I've asked all the fucking questions that I wanted to ask as far as PvP stuff. So I wanted to ask one more thing for both of you to kind of answer, and that is if you could tell something to anybody, like a new player, existing player, you know, anything like that, whether you've been here for a while, you were here and you left, or you never left. One thing that they should always keep in mind, like for PvP, the PvP aspect of the game, like what's one thing you feel will never change? Like what's something that's going to be constant in that mode?
To adapt. You need to understand. It's not about this person's using this build. Let me complain about it. This person killed me with that. They shot me behind a wall. Stop complaining and do more understanding, figuring shit out, adapt. If this dude is waiting behind a fucking wall and he keeps killing me, just waiting for me to run by, let me not just run out there. Let me be slower and try and figure out where this person's at, rather than like it's just be adaptable. Don't sit there call cheating, or don't just sit there and say there's nothing that you can do about it. Just to the best of your ability, understand what is happening on the field and adapt to it.
All right. And what would you say, Keys?
I mean, most of it has to do with adapting, like JK said. But I think just don't play with like, if you keep dying to one person, just be more open to like, maybe he's just better. Because I promise you, if you accept the fact that someone might just be better at a game, it's going to make you better.
It's gonna make it a lot. The game's gonna become a lot more fun at that point.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for giving me your insight on the PvP stuff. Just because I get it, I understand it, but I don't play it enough to really say anything about it to where,
So...
yeah.
We're
Because
not.
I go in there maybe once a month and play 2 rounds, and then I don't play anything again for another month. And it's 2 rounds. You're never gonna get any true experience out of that. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me.